Today, welcome everybody. Who's that? Ari. Today's my brother's Yortzeit, but I want to talk about Chamisha SHVAT, the 15th of Shvat, which is when? If today is 12, so Shabbos is 13, and Sunday is 14, so Monday is the 15th of Shvat. What's the 15th of Shvat? So the 15th of Shvat is Rosh Hashanah, Ilona is Rosh Hashanah for trees. What does it mean? A new year for trees. So the din is like this, that one of the big laws that in living in Israel is the laws of tithing. There's all kinds of tithes that a person has to separate from his produce every year. 2%, for example, an average of 2% has to go to the Kohen. What's left over of 10% has to go to the Levi. And then on top of that, a second 10% that in the 7-year cycle, 4 years out of the cycle, he takes to Yerushalayim to eat. If it's gonna not last the trip, so you sell it and you buy food there, and then 2 years out of the 6-year cycle it goes to the poor. Anyway, the point is that there are these tithes of tithing every year. So you have to know when the year starts, when the year ends. So for vegetables, for example, the Rosh Hashanah for vegetables that take root before Rosh Hashanah, out Rosh Hashanah belong to the previous year. Vegetables that take root after Rosh Hashanah, 1st of Tishrei, belong to the tithing, the calculation of the year to come. You can't, this is the law, you can't say, I won't tithe 1 year and I'll tithe 20% a year later. Every year's produce has to get its meiser, its tithing or its truma, which is the first thing given to the kohen, which is unspecified amount, but the average is 2%. So trees, fruit, have their own. So what's fruit? Fruit is the 15th of Shvat. 15th of Shvat, any fruit that blossoms before belongs to the previous year. If it blossoms after the 15th of Shvat, it's to be calculated in the produce of this year. Why the 15th of Shvat? Because the rain starts falling when? It's really Sukkot. In essence, on the 15th of Tishrei, we should be asking for rain. We don't on the first day of Sukkot because we're sitting in the Sukkot. So when do we do it? At the end of Sukkot. But one of the reasons, the basic reasons that we take the 4 kinds, very simple level, the Dalet minimum Sukkot, because they all grow with water. And it's Sukkot time, we're asking the rain, it's a simple meaning. Up, down, the rain, the dew, the winds, Hashem should provide. But then it's 4 months. We ask then on Shmini Atzeres, and then 4 months now to the 15th of Tishrei, all the rains of the winter has fallen. So now, since all the rains have saturated the earth, now which grows from the 15th of Shvat on, this is the New Year's rains. And that which blossomed before is still getting nourishment from the rain of the previous year. Because by the 15th of Shvat, all the rain has fallen. Okay. So the 15th of Shvat is the New Year. That's a Dimake summary. Whatever blossoms before the 15th of Shvat, previous year's yield post this year. What's the connection? So you know that by the SHVAT, they make a whole Seder. It's a very special day. First, number one, because it reminds us of Eretz Yisrael, and so therefore we use this opportunity to celebrate the gift of Eretz Yisrael and the Mukabolim. It's not such. It's a recent thing in history. The Mukabolim, going back therefore only 400 years, started this Tu B'Shvat Seder, where what they eat, we're going to talk about this, the 7 kinds of species of the Eretz Yisrael is praised with, which we'll get to in a minute. But before I get to that, and I want to explain spiritually, so what this morning, the spiritual significance of the 7 species and their message. But before I get to that, just a general about trees specifically. The 7 species don't just cover fruit, as you'll hear, that they cover first and foremost grain. 2 grains and then 5 fruits. But first about the tree, because today is Rosh Hashanah Lilonis for trees. The pasuk itself says, "Ki adam meitz hasada," the person's like a tree in the field. The context there is that we are forbidden to destroy a fruit-bearing tree because it's like a person in the field, like a person. It bears fruit and therefore can't be destroyed. There's many halachas. Practically speaking, you buy land and you want to build a house and there's a fruit-bearing tree there. Can you destroy it or not? It depends for living purposes, yes, but not for. You can transplant it. There's all kinds. It's a whole field of halacha Today, it applies outside Israel everywhere. A tree that gives fruit is a special status, can't be uprooted, can't be destroyed. But what's the spiritual significance of a person compared to a tree in the field? So Chassidus explains like this. Look at a tree. The tree has the following components. It has the roots you don't see. And the roots are the biggest part of the tree. It's much bigger than the tree itself, but you don't see it. Then you have the trunk and the branches. And finally, the fruit. What's all this spiritually? The root is emunah, is faith. Just like the roots are covered in the soil, the spiritual significance is faith cannot be described and defined. Why I believe? The whole point of emunah is no reason. It's a deeply instinctual sense that I have. And why? Because Hashem exists. The reason people believe in God is because He's there. And so therefore people actually believe in Him. As we mentioned all the time, it's an amazing thing. You would think that when it comes to God, it's not a subject you discuss with children. It's the one subject that for sure, of all the subjects in the world, that's the one thing you shouldn't. It's foolish to talk about because can't see, can't hear, can't describe. The kid gets older, 15, start talking about Creator. The reality is the opposite. You talk to a 2, 3, you talk about Eibishter, you don't expect, the kid respond, God. So you get older, is questions. Where does this come from? Because on the contrary, the child is closer to having been born. So this natural sense that there is an Eibishter, it's just a given, finished. So that's like the roots, which are concealed because faith is concealed, meaning it's beyond reason, rationale, justification it is. And just like the roots are the biggest part of the tree, this has to be the foundation of our relationship with Hashem, is the natural, instinctual faith that comes from the fact that what? Here's the really deeper reason. I have a soul that is a part of Him. And every human being is a soul that's a creation of Him. So that's the foundation. And the truth is, it doesn't have to be addressed. It's a given, don't have to worry about it. It's a given, it's there. Then comes the tree itself. So the body of the tree, this is intellect. This is intellect and feel like the tree grows. And every year it adds a ring. So every year we have to grow and expand in our learning, in our love of God, our awe of God, as our intelligence develops, and we devote time to it. We have to grow and expand. There's a constant expansion, and that you can see. You can observe the expansion and the growth of the tree, and you can actually see the rings that are added. Just by the way, the oldest trees in the world are the redwood trees in California. They're a national treasure, although they have hollowed out parts of it. You can drive a truck and drive through. This is the oldest living thing in the world. So how old does it show if you count the rings? The oldest is 6,000 years. This is like empirical evidence. Every year, the ring, most of them like 2,000, but there's some that are 6,000. Every year, a tree adds a ring. The oldest, how old? Not theory, but count is as old as a terrace. It just as an interesting observation. So that's that is the rings. And what's the fruit? The fruit of the mitzvahs that we do, the impact that we have on the world. Like a fruit contains a seed for another fruit and another fruit and another fruit. So these are the three components. Emunah, the roots, learning, growing, that's the trunk, the body, and the fruit that we produce is the effect that we have. And that's the ultimate achievement of a tree, is its fruit to benefit somebody else and to plant a seed to create another person spiritually and help them. That's the fruit and the seeds created in the fruit. General introduction. Now, let's look into the specific of the seven, the Shivas Aminim, the 7 species, which that Yisrael is praised with. Just before I go further, halachically, these 7 species have a special designation category that when you eat them, there's a special after bracha, different than eating everything else under the sun. Why? Because the land of Israel is praised with them. What are they? So the list in order of the pasuk is like this. The order is significant. Wheat, barley, 2 grains, then comes grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and dates, which will now begin to explain Baruch Nis, what this means spiritually, and in this order. Again, wheat and barley, then grape, fig, pomegranate, olive, and date. Let's start with the 2 grains. They're obviously in a category of their own. Wheat and barley. So what are they? So let's note as follows. Classically in Torah, wheat is human consumption food, and barley is animal fodder. Where do we see this in the Torah? It's an empirical fact in life. But where do you see this in Torah? All of the offerings offered in the Beis Hamikdash, which were made of grain, which could be brought independently as an offering, or accompanied every animal offering, they're all made of wheat. And in fact, they were all matzah. They're all non-chometz, year-round, unleavened. The Torah is specific. And the amount of flour and how it's made was flour and oil, and made in different ways, deep fried, shallow fried, all kinds of different, what they call mincha, gift offerings, but they're made of wheat and they're chometz, and they're not chometz. There's two exceptions where the Torah says bring barley. One of them is the soita. What's the soita? The soita is a woman who her husband said, I don't want you to be, she has to tell her this, in seclusion, in privacy with this person. He's suspicious that there's a relationship. And she is in privacy with him, in a locked room, for enough time for intimacy to take place. And there were witnesses that saw it. So there's a strong suspicion that such a person, when the temple stood, would undergo, drink a certain potion and bring a certain offering. And if she was guilty, God forbid, so her and the one that which the sin did perished. And if she was innocent, she was blessed with healthy children and so on. Without going into all the details of it, it's a whole tractate in the Talmud and a whole subject in Chassidus and so on. Now she has to bring an offering of barley. Her offering, her korban of a soita is called minchas knois, the mincha, the gift offering of kinah, that the husband expressed his jealousy. He has to say, please don't. And she has to say, I'm doing it anyway and do it. And it's barley. Why barley? So the Gemara says, because she did an animal act, so her offering should be an animal food. Even if nothing happened, seclusion with somebody is inappropriate at any time. Yichud, just by the way, nowadays, doctors are saying, halavai, we kept this rule, not to be alone because with a woman in a room, because accusations, you're always on the defensive, something happened and your career is ruined. Someone has to just say one thing once, you're finished. Never alone, always someone in the room, the laws of Yichud, it's a law. A man may not be in seclusion with a woman other than his wife, his children, his mother. But she did that, so it's already, he first of all, she was in seclusion, and he said, please don't. And she still did it. It's already something inappropriate, even if nothing happened. So barley offering. All to illustrate that barley is what? Is the animal food. The other case in the Torah that we bring barley is the second day of Pesach. The counting of the Omer begins with an offering of barley. And then at the end of Pesach on Shavuos, shtei alechem, 2 breads of wheat. So Chassidus explains why barley. The simple reason why barley. Why the simple reason? Because on the second day of Pesach, we're bringing on behalf of the entire people a symbolic thank you to Hashem for the beginning of the harvest. Barley ripens first before wheat. So we bring barley. The Torah doesn't say what, but the oral law is passed down, should be barley. Chassidus explains the deeper meaning of this, that it ripens first. So the barley represents the animal soul within us. Wheat represents the food, the nourishment of the godly soul. We just said that wheat is Michael Adam. Now the word Adam, which means a person, comes from the word Adam le'eliyeh, similar to the one above. The word Adam actually has 2 meanings. Adama, earth, lowest of low, and Adam is similar to, that's a human being. He could be the lowest or the highest. He has a body made of the earth, has a soul that's divine. Wheat represents, therefore, the nourishment, spiritual endeavors, the nourishment of the godly soul. Or more than that, it represents the godly soul. We all have an animal soul, friends. Nefesh Bahamis, that's our consciousness. We shouldn't think the animal soul is some creature. One of the big what I'm showing you was Chassidus. One of the big revelations of Chassidus is this, or one of the many. Before Chassidus, our sages spoke about Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Tov. So how do you understand this? There's me, and there's a good angel, a bad angel, and one's pulling me here, one's pulling me there, that reside in my heart or reside in my mind. Chassidus came along and said, it's you. There's levels to consciousness. The conscious me is selfish. We're born selfish, friends. That's how we're born. Doesn't mean bad. Never Shabbat doesn't the animal's bad. He just doesn't know of anything but me. I think I shared this with you. Some philosopher, a psychologist said that all human endeavor, all human can be distilled to this equation. Everything for every person. Pursuit of pleasure, distance of pain. That's it. That's it. Now, we're complex creatures. Our pleasures are very complex. We need not just shelter and warmth. We want attention. We want love. We want money. We want glory. And our pains are complex. Not just you hit me, but you insult me. But it's the same. An animal, the same thing. All he wants is pleasure and not pain. That's all. That psychologist is right because he's looking at the animal soul within a person. We are a sophisticated animal, but that's. And then we have a neshama, godly soul, which is the wheat component within us. That, friends, is not naturally conscious. You have to work on revealing the godly soul. Now, going back to the barley. So the barley ripens first. So before we get to ripening first, why are we bringing barley on Pesach? Because Pesach is the birth of our people. We're born selfish, my friends. Kids are cute, but they're selfish. You're born in the world. All I know is I'm hungry, I'm cold, I'm wet, me. That's very cute. We love kids unconditionally. But Eibishter made, this is God's intention, to create an entity that is completely wrapped up in self. And what's the whole point of life is to refine the self and to realize there's a tati, a brother, there's an Eibishter, there's a purpose. I'm here not just for me, but to serve. That's a lifelong struggle. So the barley, why are we bringing barley? Because Pesach is the birth. And every year from Pesach to Shavuos, 7 weeks, we're refining the 7 emotions of the animal soul. It's a process, it's a template for year round and for the entire life of refining what? The barley, the animal within the person till we get to Shavuos, and the animal is transformed into a mensch. The barley becomes the wheat offering, and there's 2 loaves we offer, 2 loaves. The shtei alechem, the godly soul and the animal soul, that's the transformation. So all to say that barley represents what? The Nefesh Bahamis. Now I want to add a further insight here. The fact is the barley ripens before the wheat. Here's a murderdicker thing. The source of the animal soul is higher than the godly soul. That's why Esav is really the firstborn. Esav and Yaakov in the womb of Rivka, this is the Yid. Godly soul, Yaakov representing, and Esav is the Nefesh Bahamis, is the animal soul. Now, let's be very clear. The ultimate source of the neshama, nothing is higher. It's a part of Hashem. We don't speak of the source of the source. The chelik alakam mal mamish. That's something that we cannot consciously access. That's the source of the source. But to explain your length in Chassidus, I'm just going to use the Kabbalistic language now for those who don't know. The neshama is from Atzilus. But the Nefesh Bahamis, the animal soul, is from Tohu, the world of Tohu, which is higher than Atzilus, this chaotic world. Without going into detail, the source is higher. It's a crazy. The craziness really comes. The godly soul doesn't know what it means to be crazy. You have to learn that from the animal soul. He's a Michigan. He wants. Nothing will stop him. The godly soul has to learn that and channel it. So I'm saying that the animal soul really comes from a higher source than the godly soul. Esav comes from a higher source. There's a madness and a craziness that it falls very low, but if you can access it, it lifts the godly soul to a highest level. In the words of the Pasuk, Varav Tvuos B'koyach HaShoel, there's many harvests in the power of an ox. If a person himself will plow the field, how much can he yield? He takes the plow, he harnesses it to the ox, and he guides the ox. Then his yield is much greater. When we harness the craziness, let me tell you what I mean. The godly soul by itself, you learn Torah, you do mitzvahs, he's happy and satisfied. He's an intellectual being and he's rational. That's the nature of the godly soul. The animal soul within us is never satisfied. The words of our sages, he has 100, he wants 200. And if he gets 200, he doesn't want 300, he wants 400. The more success, the more never satisfied, never, which in the end can destroy the person. Or if we can challenge that never satisfied to godly things, that's the greatest achievement. But that the neshama has to learn from Nefesh Bahamis. The neshama by nature is daven, learn. He's happy. He's happy. He feels fulfilled. He understands. Yiddishkeit is beautiful. He's spiritual. Spiritually, it's very easy to be satisfied. That's the big danger. But we have to learn the ruchnius from that way. Our Nefesh Bahamis works. Is the animal soul satisfied with so much success? No. On the contrary, success just breeds out more and more and more. And if you don't control him, Meshiga, you'll go crazy. And we all know this, right? The more success, the more consumed we become, and the more so this can be again the most destructive thing or the most incredible thing. How? Channel this. Ride the animal, direct the behemoth in the service of Hashem. So, all to say, wheat and barley, the first two things of the 7 species is the person. So first of all, the wheat, who are you? You have a God neshama, and then you have an Nefesh Bahamis, an animal soul. That's the wheat and the barley. Tu B'Shvat again, it's the 7 fruits. So the first message is you have to know who you are and what the mission is. The mission is that the neshama should channel the animal and ride and learn from it and be lifted to levels and heights that the godly soul who is staid and intellectual and calm and in Yiddish gelassen and a nice sweet boy should be crazy, shtus the kedusha, should be crazy for God and conquer the world in the driving the animalistic drives in the most positive way. Wheat and barley. That's the staple. Wheat and barley are the staples, that's food. Then we have grapes, figs, pomegranates, oil, and dates. These are fruits, like luxury. They're not staples, but they enhance. Each one of them has a message of enhancement. How should we, what's the effective way to engage in our work of revealing our godly soul by harnessing and channeling our animal soul, taming and harnessing and directing, to do so effectively? These 5 fruits. So running out of time, I'm just going to say one word about each one because it's beautiful verses from all over to explain all of this. But we'll just begin. The first thing is wine, grapes. What's the immediate association with grapes? Of course, is wine. And what's that? Simcha. The first ingredient and property in a successful life. The mission to develop our godly soul, to harness and channel our animal soul, that they become one, is to have joy, simcha. Joy, when a person, you see in life, when a person's besimcha, this is what happens. Every faculty that he has opens up and becomes very powerful. If you're down and you're learning, it doesn't go. Just to give an example of learning. The person's joyous, then his mind is firing, the emotions are firing, everything is intense. So to bring into intensity, what wine goes in, the secrets come out, to bring out the depth, simcha. That's number one. The next, you know what, you have to explain this properly, what a fig is. And a pomegranate, okay, so Mitzvah Hashem next week, because it needs, I'm going to actually share the psukim with you, 4 more properties that's for successful harvest, spiritual harvest, will be defined by the next fruits. Okay, Yiddish. Have a wonderful Shabbos. And good to see everybody.
L'chaim tov v'ruchim, Rabbi. All the very best to you. The neshama of Chaim should have an aliyah with God's help.
Amen.
Watch over all of you.
Yeah.
Amen. God bless you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you to Michelle.
Good Shabbos. All the very best to you all. God bless you all.
All right.
Thanks. Have a good Shabbos, Rabbi. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you.